why the Upside Down is stuck on November 6, 1983. Welcome back. Tonight, we're diving into one of the most haunting mysteries that lies at the very heart of Hawkins, Indiana. A mystery that quite literally froze time itself. November 6th, 1983. A date that should have come and gone like any other autumn evening in small-town America. Instead, it became eternally preserved in a dark mirror world, suspended in an endless moment, while our reality marched forward without it. The discovery came years later, in 1986, when Nancy Wheeler found herself trapped in the Upside Down alongside Steve Harrington, Robin Buckley, and Eddie Munson. They had plunged through the Watergate at Lover's Lake, desperately fleeing from the demobats that circled Vecna's domain like vultures. Nancy suggested they head to her house to retrieve her hidden weapons. It seemed like a solid plan at the time, but when they arrived at the upside-down version of the Wheeler residence, something felt profoundly wrong. The house looked familiar but dated, like stepping into an old photograph. Nancy climbed the stairs to her bedroom, muscle memory guiding her to where she kept her guns concealed. She reached for the spot, fingers searching. Nothing. The weapons weren't there. Her hands trembled as she pulled out drawer after drawer, finding objects she'd thrown away years ago. Old study cards from sophomore year. Wallpaper that had been replaced. Shoes she'd donated. Then she found her diary. Nancy flipped through the pages, her heart sinking with each turn. The entries should have filled the journal, chronicling 3 full years of her life. But they didn't. The last entry sat there, staring back at her with the ink of the past. November 6th, 1983, the very day Will Byers vanished. The very day 11 opened the first gate. Nancy's voice cut through the suffocating air of that alien bedroom as she spoke the realization aloud. The Upside Down wasn't a parallel dimension moving in sync with their world. It was stuck. Frozen. A snapshot taken at a single moment in time and preserved forever in this dark realm. November the 6th, 1983 wasn't just any date. It was the day everything changed in Hawkins. When the fabric between dimensions tore open. When a young boy disappeared into darkness. When monsters first walked among us. But why that specific day? Why did time stop moving forward in the Upside Down on that particular evening? What made that moment so cosmically significant that an entire dimension became anchored to it? The answer, as we'll discover, reaches deeper than simple coincidence. It touches on the very nature of psychic power, dimensional barriers, and a malevolent intelligence that had been planning its revenge for 4 long years. So, settle in, dim the lights, because we're about to explore the frozen moment when the Upside Down stopped ticking forward and became locked in an eternal November night. The fateful day, November 6th, 1983, began like any ordinary day in Hawkins. Kids went to school. Parents went to work. The autumn air carried the scent of fallen leaves and approaching winter. By evening, Mike Wheeler's basement filled with the excited voices of 4 friends gathered around a table, their Dungeons and Dragons campaign reaching a climactic moment. Will Byers' character faced the fearsome Demogorgon, a creature from the game that would soon become horrifyingly real. But while those boys played in the safety of the Wheeler home, something far more sinister was unfolding beneath Hawkins National Laboratory. In the depths of that facility, Dr. Martin Brenner supervised an experiment that would crack open reality itself. His subject was a young girl known only as 11, a child with remarkable psychic abilities, a weapon the government hoped to use in the Cold War. On this particular evening, Brenner had a specific task for her. Days earlier, 11 had been placed in a sensory deprivation tank for a remote viewing exercise. These tanks allowed her to enter what she called the void, a black, empty space, where her consciousness could travel vast distances. She had successfully eavesdropped on a Russian agent as instructed. But during that session, something unexpected happened. In the darkness of the void, she heard something. A distant sound, clicking, growling, the presence of something utterly alien, something wrong. 11 panicked and the experiment was aborted. But Dr. Brenner's curiosity had been ignited. He had heard the creature through the monitoring equipment. This wasn't a Russian spy or a foreign dignitary. This was something else entirely. Something from somewhere else. On November 6th, Brenner ordered 11 back into the tank. This time, he gave her explicit instructions. She was to make contact with the creature, find it in the void, touch it. 11 descended into the tank's warm, salty water, the sensory deprivation allowing her mind to slip free from her body. In the void, she walked through the darkness, searching. Then she found it. The creature stood hunched over large yellow eggs, feeding. Its body was humanoid, but wrong. Faceless, save for the gaping maw that split its head like a blooming flower of teeth. This was the Demogorgon, though no one knew that name yet. It existed in a place that wasn't supposed to touch our world. 11 hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to pull back, to return to her body, to safety. But Brenner's voice echoed in her ears even across the psychic distance. Make contact! With trembling will, 11 reached out a hand in the void. Her psychic fingers brushed the creature's form. In that instant, everything changed. The Demogorgon's head snapped toward her, sensing her presence for the first time. It roared, a sound that pierced through dimensions, and 11's terror exploded outwards in a burst of psychic energy so powerful that reality itself couldn't contain it. In the tank room at Hawkins Lab, the wall cracked open with a sound like thunder. Not a mere fracture in the concrete, but a genuine tear in the fabric of space and time. A gateway, the Mothergate. Through that opening, the Demogorgon crossed over into our world. It immediately killed a scientist trying to flee the chaos. 11, overwhelmed by what she had done, escaped the laboratory through a drainage pipe. As she ran through the woods in her hospital gown, terror and confusion clouding her mind. Another event was unfolding on the roads near the lab. Will Byers pedalled his bike home from the Wheeler house, riding through the dark autumn night. His friends had just spent hours battling imaginary monsters. Now, Will faced a real one. The Demogorgon, having escaped Hawkins' lab, found Will on that lonely road. Perhaps it was drawn by some quality of the boy. Perhaps it was pure chance. But when Will's bike light flickered and died, when he heard that distinctive clicking sound behind him, his fate was sealed. Will crashed his bike and ran, making it to his house. His mother Joyce wasn't home yet. He was alone. The creature followed. In this first encounter, there appeared to be unusual elements that later encounters wouldn't show. The question of how it entered the locked house has sparked debate among fans. Some point to what seemed like telekinetic abilities, wondering if perhaps it wasn't the Demogorgon at all. Could it have been Vecna, using his psychic powers? The evidence remains murky, lost in the shadows of that November night. What we know for certain is that Will Byers was taken into the Upside Down that evening. He would spend a full week there, hiding in the familiar spaces of his town rendered alien and hostile. While his friends and family searched desperately, Will survived in that dark mirror world, communicating through lights and shadows. And the Upside Down remained frozen on the day he entered it. The dimension that time forgot to understand why November 6th, 1983 became the eternal moment in the Upside Down we need to look back 4 years earlier, September 8th, 1979, the date of the Hawkins Lab massacre, the day that Henry Creel, working undercover as a friendly orderly at the lab, revealed his true nature as subject number 1. Henry had been Dr. Brenner's first success, a boy with natural psychic powers that manifested in childhood. Powers he used to torture and kill his own mother and sister in March of 1959, blaming it on a demonic presence in their Hawkins home. Brenner had taken Henry in, implanted a device called soteria in his neck to suppress his abilities, and used his blood to create an entire generation of psychic children. 11 was among them. In September of 1979, Henry manipulated 11 into removing the soteria chip. His powers restored, one proceeded to brutally murder nearly everyone in the laboratory. He tried to convince 11 to join him in his mission to destroy humanity, viewing people as a pestilence that needed to be wiped clean. But 11, drawing on memories of her mother's love, refused. The two engaged in a psychic battle in the Rainbow Room, and 11 won. She didn't just defeat one, she sent him somewhere. As 11's power overwhelmed him, one's body began to disintegrate. A crack appeared in the wall, glowing with otherworldly energy. One was pulled through, tumbling into an alien dimension. The crack sealed behind him almost immediately. What happened next would take years to fully understand. One fell through a realm of electrical storms and barren landscapes. Lightning struck his body repeatedly, burning away his humanity. His skin charred and cracked. His face twisted into something monstrous. This realm was described by Henry himself as a world unspoiled by mankind, a primordial place, home to creatures that would later terrorize Hawkins. The Demogorgons roamed this landscape. Bat-like predators circled overhead, and suspended in the air was something extraordinary. A vast cloud of sentient particles, a swirling mass of consciousness without form. Henry Creel, transformed into the creature that would become known as Vecna, did what he had always done. He took control. Using his psychic abilities, he reached into that cloud of particles and shaped it, bent it to his will, created from it a hive mind that would allow him to control all the creatures in this dimension. As revealed in Season 4, this cloud became the Mind Flayer, shaped into the form of a giant spider, because that's what Henry's twisted mind wanted, the ultimate predator, the Black Widow he had so admired as a child. But here's where things get interesting. When Vecna was banished in 1979, this alien dimension looked nothing like Hawkins. It was a volcanic wasteland, mountains and floating rocks, electrical storms. Not a single building or road or tree from Indiana. Yet by November of 1983, when 11 opened the Mothergate and Will Byers was taken, the Upside Down was a perfect mirror of Hawkins. Same houses, same streets, same town layout, dark, decaying, covered in vines and spores, but unmistakably Hawkins. What happened in those 4 years? Vecna himself provides a clue in a conversation with Nancy Wheeler. He mentions that he had meant to check in on his father, Victor Creel, over the years. But he had been busy, so very busy. Those words carry weight. What exactly had Vecna been busy doing during those 4 years between his banishment and the opening of the Mothergate? Chris Trujillo, the show's production designer, offered insight into the timeline in interviews about the show. He explained that the moment the Upside Down was created, inadvertently by 11, the world within it was frozen in that exact moment. When Nancy goes into the Upside Down and visits her room, everything is set, dressed and staged as it was in Season 1, when the show first began. This suggests that November 6th, 1983, was the moment when the Upside Down as we know it came into being. But this raises profound questions. If Vecna was sent to a dimension in 1979, how did that dimension transform into a replica of Hawkins by 1983? The answer may lie in Vecna's abilities and intentions. Consider how a spider builds its web. It doesn't randomly spin silk. It carefully constructs a trap designed to catch specific prey. The web's shape serves a purpose. Some theorists suggest that Vecna spent those 4 years meticulously building the upside-down version of Hawkins, that he used his psychic powers and his connection to the hive mind to shape reality itself according to his will. He would have known Hawkins from his childhood there as Henry Creel. The town would have been imprinted in his memory. And he would have known that eventually 11 would open a gate. She had sent him here. She had that power. It was only a matter of time before she, or someone like her, would crack open a doorway. So Vecna prepared. He built his web. He shaped this alien dimension into a dark reflection of Hawkins, creating the perfect hunting ground, the perfect trap. When the gate finally opened on November 6th, 1983, Vecna was ready. But something unexpected happened at the moment of contact. Something that locked his carefully constructed replica in time. Theories of the frozen moment. The question haunts everyone who has studied the Upside Down. Why did time stop on November 6th, 1983? Several theories have emerged, each offering a different perspective on this dimensional mystery. The first and most straightforward theory centers on Eleven's psychic power. When she made contact with the Demogorgon in the void, she was terrified. That fear triggered an explosive release of psychic energy unlike anything she had ever done before. Even sending one through a dimensional crack in 1979 hadn't required this level of sustained power. Opening the Mothergate was different. It wasn't a brief window that closed immediately. It was a permanent tear in reality that stayed open for a full year. The immense psychic force required to keep that gate open may have had an unexpected side effect. It could have frozen the Upside Down in that precise moment. Think of it like a photograph. When a camera captures an image, it preserves a single instant in time. Perhaps 11's psychic energy did something similar on a dimensional scale. Her power created a snapshot of Hawkins as it existed that evening, November 6th, 1983, around the time Will Byers vanished. Everything in the Upside Down became locked to that frozen instant. This theory finds support in the fact that the Upside Down mirrors Hawkins so perfectly. Every detail matches that specific date. Nancy's bedroom has the wallpaper and possessions from 3 years earlier. The town hasn't progressed. Buildings that were constructed after 1983 don't exist in the Upside Down. It's as if 11's psychic contact created a perfect duplicate of the real world at that moment, and then sealed it in temporal amber. But there's a complication with this theory. If 11's power was responsible for freezing the Upside Down, why didn't it happen in 1979 when she sent one through the crack? She demonstrated massive psychic force in that confrontation. She opened a gateway between dimensions, even if only briefly. Yet the dimension one landed in wasn't frozen. It wasn't a copy of Hawkins. It was that primordial wasteland. So what made November 6th, 1983 different? This leads to the second major theory, one that distinguishes between different types of dimensional breaches. In 1979, 11 didn't actually open a gate. She opened a window. Or perhaps more accurately, she created a crack. One-way passage. She shoved one through forcefully, but the opening closed immediately behind him. There was no sustained connection between dimensions. No permanent doorway. It was more like throwing someone out of a moving car than opening an actual door they could walk through. The Mothergate in 1983 was fundamentally different. It remained open. The Demogorgon could cross back and forth. Later, the vines and organisms from the Upside Down would grow through it, spreading beneath Hawkins. Joyce Byers and Jim Hopper would use it to enter the Upside Down and rescue Will. This wasn't a crack that sealed. This was a genuine, sustained gateway between dimensions. And that sustained psychic connection may have been what froze time. When Eleven made contact with the Demogorgon, she created a powerful psychic link, a bridge between minds. The Demogorgon was part of Vecna's hive mind, so in effect, Eleven created a psychic connection between herself and Vecna, though neither of them fully understood this at the time. That connection, combined with the massive energy required to keep a permanent gate open, may have created the temporal freeze. Think of it like two dimensions touching, their surfaces pressed together at a single point in time. As long as that contact remains, that specific moment stays preserved. The Upside Down stopped progressing forward because it became anchored to our world at that exact instant. Time continued flowing in the real Hawkins, but the Upside Down remained tethered to the moment of contact. A third theory places more emphasis on Vecna's role in the temporal freeze. Based on what we've seen, Vecna may have spent 4 years building the Upside Down version of Hawkins. He shaped that realm according to his will. When Nancy points out that the Upside Down is stuck in time, this interpretation suggests the freeze wasn't an accident or a side effect of Eleven's power. It could have been intentional. Vecna may have wanted the Upside Down frozen on that specific date. From what we understand of his character, Vecna doesn't experience time the way humans do. His entire philosophy revolves around transcending human limitations. The endless march of time is one of those limitations. The tyranny of the clock. The way humans are slaves to schedules and deadlines and aging. Vecna sees this as weakness. Based on this mindset, when he built his Upside Down Hawkins, he may have deliberately created it as a timeless realm. A place where his concept of reality reigns supreme, where time itself is subject to his control. The date of November 6th, 1983, may have been significant because that's when Vecna anticipated Eleven would open the gate. Given that she had the power to send him through dimensions, he had been waiting for her, watching for any sign of a breach. When she finally made contact with the Demogorgon, part of his hive mind, Vecna could have been ready. He may have used that moment of connection to lock the Upside Down in place, to ensure it remained exactly as he had built it. A perfect replica of Hawkins from that one night, preserved forever as his domain. This theory gains credibility when we consider what Vecna was trying to accomplish. His ultimate goal wasn't to invade the real world in the traditional sense. He wanted to merge the two dimensions, to make the Upside Down and the real world bleed together until they became one twisted reality. Having the Upside Down frozen at a specific moment could serve that purpose. It would create a stable anchor point, a fixed reference that wouldn't change while Vecna worked on breaking down the barriers between worlds. A fourth theory brings Will Byers into the equation in a more significant way. Will was the first person to survive extended time in the Upside Down. He spent a full week there, hiding and evading the Demogorgon. During that time, he was terrified, desperate, clinging to memories of home and family to stay sane. Some theorists suggest that Will's presence in the Upside Down that week may have contributed to its temporal freeze. Will was a child with a vivid imagination. He knew every street in Hawkins, every hiding place, every shortcut through town. When he was taken to the Upside Down, he immediately recognized it as a dark version of home. that recognition may have been more significant than anyone realised. One interpretation suggests that Will, in his desperate need for familiarity, might have unconsciously helped stabilise the Upside Down's appearance. His mind, seeking comfort in a terrifying alien realm, could have reinforced the connection to Hawkins as he remembered it from that specific day. There's also been speculation that Will possesses latent psychic abilities that no one has fully recognised. He was able to communicate through the lights while trapped in the Upside Down. He established a connection with his mother across dimensional boundaries. Later, he would become a vessel for the Mind Flayer, able to sense its presence and intentions. The Mind Flayer specifically chose Will for possession in Season 2. This raises questions about whether there was something special about him, something that made him valuable to Vecna's plans. If this interpretation holds any truth, and Will does possess some form of psychic sensitivity, even if it's not as dramatic as Eleven's abilities, his presence in the Upside Down during that first week could have interacted with the dimensional freeze. His mind might have acted like a tuning fork, resonating with the psychic energies present and helping to lock things in place. This would offer one explanation for why the Upside Down remains frozen on the day Will disappeared, rather than, say, the exact hour and minute that 11 made contact with the Demogorgon. A fifth theory examines the nature of the dimensions themselves. One compelling interpretation suggests the Upside Down isn't a parallel dimension at all. It could be more like a pocket dimension, a bubble of reality created when 11 opened the Mothergate. According to this view, the Upside Down as we know it, the dark mirror of Hawkins, literally didn't exist before November 6th, 1983. The dimension that Vecna was sent to in 1979 was something else entirely. An older, primordial realm. In this interpretation, when 11 made psychic contact with the Demogorgon and created the Mothergate, her power didn't just open a door to that primordial realm, it created something new. A dimensional photocopy of Hawkins at that exact moment. This new realm was inflected with the organic material from the older dimension, the vines, spores and membranes, the creatures. But the structure, the buildings and streets, came from 11's psychic imprint of reality. This would explain why the Upside Down is frozen. It's not that time stopped. It's that the Upside Down never experienced time at all. It was created as a static replica. A three-dimensional photograph of Hawkins, made from psychic energy and alien biology. Time doesn't flow there, because it was never meant to. It's a construct, not a living dimension, with its own temporal progression. This theory also addresses the question of why the Upside Down mirrors only Hawkins and not the entire world. If it were truly a parallel dimension, you would expect the entire planet to be replicated, but we've never seen evidence that the Upside Down extends beyond Hawkins and its immediate surroundings. This suggests it could be a limited space, bounded by the range of 11's psychic awareness at the moment of creation. Each of these theories has merit. Each addresses different aspects of the temporal freeze, but the truth could involve elements from multiple theories working together. Perhaps 11's psychic power created the initial snapshot. Vecna's will shaped and stabilized it. Will's presence reinforced the specific date, and the sustained connection through the Mothergate kept it all locked in place. The complexity of dimensional physics combined with multiple psychic forces might have produced this singular phenomenon, a moment frozen forever in an alien mirror of reality. The deeper meaning. The temporal freeze in the Upside Down isn't just a curious anomaly. It carries profound implications for the entire mythology of Hawkins and the battle against Vecna. Understanding why time stopped on November 6th, 1983 may be the key to defeating the darkness that threatens to consume everything. First, consider what it means that the Upside Down is frozen. This isn't simply a matter of curiosity or world-building detail. The frozen moment suggests that the Upside Down is fundamentally connected to that specific day in a way that defines its very existence. November 6th, 1983 isn't just when the gate opened. It's the birthday of the Upside Down as we know it. Everything that happened that day, every element that came together, was necessary for this dark dimension to exist in its current form. This means that the key to unravelling the Upside Down may lie in understanding those specific events. What made Eleven's contact with the Demogorgon different from any other psychic remote viewing? What made Will's disappearance significant beyond the obvious tragedy? What cosmic confluence occurred that evening that created the conditions for a dimension to freeze in time? The Duffer Brothers, creators of the show, have confirmed that this question will be central to the final season. Ross Duffer stated explicitly that the biggest remaining mystery is how the Upside Down is stuck in time on the day of Will's disappearance. He called it the key plot point, the key question that will drive the final season. They're going to wrap up this story by giving us the answers. This promise suggests that the temporal freeze isn't just a weird side effect. It's integral to everything. One interpretation is that November 6th, 1983 represents a moment of perfect alignment. Multiple factors came together in just the right way. Eleven's fear and power, the Demogorgon's presence, Vecna's hive mind connected to it, Will's disappearance, the opening of a permanent gate. All these elements occurred simultaneously, potentially creating a unique psychic resonance that trapped time itself. If this theory is accurate, then breaking the temporal freeze might require recreating those conditions or deliberately disrupting them. Perhaps Eleven will need to return to the tank and re-experience that moment, but this time with full understanding and control. Perhaps Will, who has always been central to the Upside Down mystery, will need to face his trauma from that night in a more direct way. The frozen moment may need to be unfrozen by those who were present when it was created. There's also the question of what happens to the Upside Down if time starts flowing again. Would it suddenly catch up to the present? Would 3 years pass in an instant? Or would it simply resume from November 6th, 1983, and begin aging naturally? The mechanics of dimensional time could have strange effects. Unfreezing the Upside Down might not solve all the problems. It could create new ones. Another implication involves Vecna's plans. At the end of Season 4, he succeeded in opening 4 gates that converged in Hawkins, creating massive rifts that allowed the Upside Down to begin bleeding into the real world. Ash-like snow fell from the sky. The boundary between dimensions started breaking down, but the Upside Down pouring through was still frozen on November 6th, 1983. What happens when that frozen realm fully merges with the present-day real world? Imagine walking through Hawkins and encountering buildings that exist in 2 states simultaneously. The current version and the 1983 version occupying the same space. Imagine people from the present meeting their own selves from that frozen moment, if such a thing were possible in the Upside Down. The collision of 2 temporal states could create paradoxes and distortions that go beyond simple horror. Reality itself could become unstable. This may be exactly what Vecna wants. Remember, his philosophy rejects human concepts of time and order. He sees the structured flow of reality as a prison. Merging a frozen dimension with the living world would shatter those structures. It would create a realm where time becomes meaningless, where past and present exist simultaneously, where Vecna's will, rather than natural law, determines what is real. The temporal freeze also connects to Will's ongoing significance in the story. He was the first victim of the Upside Down, the first person taken across dimensions, the first to survive there. Later, he became the vessel for the Mind Flayer. He developed an ongoing connection to the Upside Down, able to sense when it's near and when Vecna is active. In Season 4, we see that Will still feels that connection, that he's still tied to the darkness in ways he doesn't fully understand. If the Upside Down is frozen on the day Will disappeared, then, in a sense, part of Will could still be trapped in that moment. Every time he senses the Upside Down, he might be feeling that connection to November 6th, 1983. His trauma isn't just psychological, it could be dimensional. He may be anchored to the frozen moment just as surely as the Upside Down itself. This interpretation might explain why the Mind Flayer was able to possess him so effectively. He was already part of that frozen realm in a way no one else was. Breaking Will free from that connection could be essential to defeating Vecna. If Will is anchored to the temporal freeze, then perhaps he's also the key to releasing it. His liberation might trigger the Upside Down's liberation, or conversely, freeing the Upside Down from its temporal prison might finally free Will from the shadow that has haunted him for years. There's also symbolism to consider. The Upside Down being frozen in time represents stagnation, a refusal to move forward, an inability to heal or grow, or change. This mirrors the trauma that many characters carry. Nancy's guilt over Barb's death, Max's grief over Billy, Will's ongoing struggle with what happened to him, Steve's inability to move on from his high school identity. These characters are all, in their own ways, stuck in the past, unable to fully escape moments that define them. The temporal freeze in the Upside Down literalizes this psychological reality. It's a dimension that cannot let go, that clutches at a single moment and refuses to release it. For the characters to defeat the Upside Down and Vecna, they may need to confront their own inability to move past trauma. They may need to demonstrate that humans can heal, can grow, can escape the prison of painful memories. This psychological victory could potentially manifest as a dimensional one. Finally, consider what the temporal freeze tells us about the nature of the Upside Down itself. It's not a natural dimension. It's not a place that evolved over eons with its own ecosystem and physical laws. It's artificial, constructed. Whether it was created entirely on November 6th, 1983, or merely shaped and frozen then, the Upside Down as we know it is a product of conscious will rather than natural forces. This makes it fundamentally different from our reality. Our world has history, deep time, layers of past that have built up over billions of years. The Upside Down has only one moment, one thin slice of existence. It's a house of cards held together by psychic energy and Vecna's will. This suggests it might be vulnerable in ways natural dimensions are not. Finding the right thread to pull could potentially cause the whole structure to collapse. The temporal freeze is both the Upside Down's strength and its weakness. It provides stability, a fixed point that can't be changed or eroded by time. But it also makes the entire dimension dependent on that single moment. If that moment can be altered, if the freeze can be broken, the entire Upside Down might cease to exist. Or it could transform into something else, something that can be defeated. What Season 5 will reveal, the creators have made clear promises about the final season. Matt and Ross Duffer built the series with the intention of coming full circle. They have stated that the story began with Will's disappearance, and it needs to end with Will in many ways. After being somewhat sidelined in recent seasons, Will return to the centre of the narrative. His role in that frozen moment and his ongoing connection to the Upside Down will finally be fully explored and resolved. Ross Duffer specifically identified the temporal freeze as the key question driving the final season. They set it up in Season 4, Volume 1, with Nancy's discovery. They acknowledged it, but didn't answer it. Now, in Season 5, they promised to reveal the truth. Why is the Upside Down stuck in time on the day of Will's disappearance? The answer will apparently unlock the rest of the story. It will explain things that have been mysteries since Season 1. It will provide the final pieces needed to understand what the Upside Down truly is. Matt Duffer added that the big reveals coming in Season 5 are really about the Upside Down itself. They've only started to hint at its true nature. This suggests that everything we think we understand about that dark dimension may be incomplete. The temporal freeze is just one aspect of a larger truth that has been hidden. When that truth emerges, it could recontextualize everything that's happened across all previous seasons. The final season will also need to address what happens when the Upside Down fully merges with Hawkins. Vecna succeeded in opening the 4 gates at the end of Season 4. The dimensions are already bleeding together. Ash and spores drift through the streets of Hawkins. The military has quarantined the town. The situation is dire. Can the merger be reversed? Can the gates be closed? Or has the damage gone too far? If the temporal freeze is connected to the Upside Down's very existence, then perhaps unfreezing time could be key to stopping the merger. Maybe the Upside Down can only exist as a frozen moment. Set time flowing again, and it might destabilize, fall apart, return to the primordial realm Vecna originally landed in. This interpretation would mean that saving Hawkins requires releasing November 6th, 1983 from its eternal loop, letting go of that frozen instant, allowing time to resume its natural flow. But there's danger in this approach. Unfreezing the Upside Down might have unpredictable consequences. It might not simply dissolve, it could accelerate. 3 years of accumulated time might hit all at once. Or it might begin aging rapidly, catching up to the present in hours or days. The organic growth that's been spreading through that dimension might explode outward. The vines and spores might evolve in fast forward. New horrors could emerge. Vecna himself is another variable. He's been in the Upside Down since 1979, 4 years before it froze. Has he aged during that time? Or is he also subject to the temporal freeze? If time starts flowing again, will he continue transforming? Will his power grow? Or might it finally allow him to be truly killed, made vulnerable by the passage of time? These questions remain unanswered. The final season promises to bring Eleven back to full strength. Her powers were lost at the end of Season 3 after the Mind Flayer attacked her and implanted part of itself in her leg. Season 4 showed her going through an intense process to restore her abilities, reliving the trauma of the Rainbow Room and her battle with One. By the end of Season 4, she had her powers back. But she'll need to be stronger than ever to face what's coming. The battle with Vecna that ended Season 4 left him wounded, but alive. He'll return for the final confrontation. That confrontation will likely force Eleven to finally understand what happened when she made contact with the Demogorgon on November 6, 1983. She'll need to confront the role she played in creating or stabilizing the Upside Down, the guilt she carries over opening that first gate, the responsibility she feels for everything that followed. Her journey has always been about understanding and controlling her power. The final season will push that understanding to its limit. Will's role remains central and mysterious. The Duffers have emphasized that the story needs to end with him. He's been the key since the beginning. His disappearance sparked everything. His connection to the Upside Down has persisted. The Mind Flayer chose him. There are indications that Vecna has some ongoing interest in him. Will's ability to sense the Upside Down suggests he remains linked to it in ways that could be either dangerous or essential to victory. There are also hints that Will's personal journey will intersect with the larger battle. His struggle with identity, his feelings of being different, his sense that he doesn't fit in the same way his friends do. These personal challenges mirror the show's larger themes about outsiders and belonging. Will's path to self-acceptance may parallel the path to defeating the Upside Down. Both require confronting truth, accepting reality, moving forward rather than remaining trapped in a frozen moment of pain and fear. The final season will also need to address the military presence in Hawkins. The government knows about the Upside Down now. They want to weaponize it. Lieutenant Colonel Sullivan and his forces represent a threat separate from Vecna. They see 11 as dangerous. They see the entire situation in terms of national security rather than dimensional horror. This conflict could complicate efforts to close the gates and stop the merger. The human threat and the supernatural threat may collide in unexpected ways. One thing is certain: the frozen moment of November 6th, 1983 will be central to everything. Understanding why time stopped that day, what made it special, what forces came together to create the conditions for a dimension to lock in place, and ultimately how to break that lock and either destroy the Upside Down or transform it into something that no longer threatens our world. The answers are coming. The Duffers have promised. And when those answers arrive, they'll redefine everything we thought we knew about Hawkins, about the Upside Down, and about the power of human connection to transcend the boundaries between worlds. November 6th, 1983 will finally be allowed to pass. Time will move forward again, and with it, perhaps, healing will come. Conclusion. We've journeyed through the mystery of a moment frozen in time. November 6th, 1983. A date that should have faded into history. Just another autumn evening in a small Indiana town. Instead, it became eternal. Preserved in a dark mirror realm where time stopped ticking forward. Where every clock is stuck at the moment when a young boy vanished. When a girl with psychic powers tore open reality. When monsters crossed over and the world changed forever. The reasons behind the temporal freeze remain partially hidden, waiting for the final season to illuminate them fully. But we can see the outlines of the truth. A confluence of psychic energies. 11's terrified power. Vecna's malevolent will. Will's mysterious significance. The creation or transformation of a dimension that became anchored to a single moment. A convergence of forces that may have locked time itself in place. This frozen moment isn't just an interesting quirk of dimensional physics. It's the heart of everything. The key that will unlock the final mysteries of the Upside Down. The weakness that might allow it to be defeated. And the symbol of trauma, of being unable to move past painful memories that define so many of our characters' journeys. When Season 5 finally reveals why the Upside Down is stuck on November 6th, 1983, we'll understand the true nature of this dark dimension. We'll see how all the pieces fit together. How Will's disappearance, 11's power, Vecna's plans, and the opening of the Mothergate combine to create something unprecedented. A dimension that refuses to let go of a single moment. And we'll discover what it takes to finally break free from that frozen instant. To let time flow again. To heal. The countdown is on. The final season approaches. And with it, the answers we've been waiting for. The truth about November 6th, 1983. The day that time stood still in the Upside Down. The moment everything changed. And the key to saving Hawkins from the darkness that threatens to consume it. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most fascinating mysteries in Hawkins, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. We'll be here exploring every corner of this story, unpacking every mystery right up until the final episode airs. Share your own theories in the comments below. What do you think really happened on November 6th, 1983? Why did time stop in the Upside Down? Let's discuss. Until next time, sweet dreams. And remember, when the lights flicker, when the temperature drops, when you hear that distinctive clicking sound in the darkness, you might be feeling the presence of a dimension stuck forever in a single moment. A moment that's waiting to break free.